Hey, Brian Wright Show Nation. Welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian Wright here, and welcome in to the very first episode of the Brian Wright Show, but episode 124 overall at the exact same time. So you may be going, hey, how can this be a first episode and also the 124th at the same time? Well, if you've been paying any attention whatsoever, we have now rebranded the New Patient Group podcast, which we have spent 8 seasons doing. Appreciate all of your following, our great support and followers and the downloads across the globe. We have rebranded that into the Brian Wright Show. So 124 episodes in, and today's the first episode of the Brian Wright Show. We're going to be diving into why we are the voice of the new economy, what the new economy is, the consumer data that's truly alarming, but a lot of people also complain about it, when what we're going to teach you is how to use that consumer data to transform your life, your career, and or your business. Use the things to your advantage that other people complain about those same reasons on why they're failing, right? A lot of the decision-making you make play a lot into the successes you can have in this new economy, or maybe even the failures, the lack thereof. We're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about the consumer data, using the decisions and how to make decisions around that consumer data, how to take your personal bias out of it. And if you can look at the data and think in terms of customer experience over data, customer experience over analytics, customer experience and relationships, and how you can take those and how you can look at the consumer data and say, look, if we change the journey, right, we are going to dominate in our business, right? This is also somebody in an episode for many of you out there, right, that maybe not be business owners, your employees, your reps, you work for an entrepreneur, whatever it is, or maybe you're just trying to get more out of life. This consumer data I'm going to talk about today very much applies to, hey, I want to lose weight, want to be more healthy, I want to get more out of my relationship with my spouse. You can use this data, whether you're trying to improve life, career, and or business, all the above, like I just mentioned. Excited about this. We're going to kick off the Brian Wright Show with an awesome one, and let's get started.
Welcome to the Brian Wright Show audio experience. A podcast dedicated to transforming lives, careers, and businesses. And now your host. He's a husband, father of 2, an international business and life coach, the founder and CEO of New Patient Group and Wright Chat, and a consultant and global speaker for some of the finest companies in the world, such as Invisalign and many others. Now, here's your host, Brian Wright.
It was about 2 years ago now, I was speaking for Invisalign in Charlotte, and afterwards I was walking the streets of downtown and chose to walk into this quaint little restaurant. Looked awesome, really good ambiance, and I'm just going to sit there because I had a few hours before I needed to go to the airport. And I'm sitting in this little quaint area of the restaurant where you could see the cooks. They were cooking things, and you just open kitchen, kind of like an open, like a sushi bar kind of thing, but it wasn't sushi. It was just an American cuisine restaurant. I'm sitting there, ordered a cocktail, having an appetizer, and I hear, "Are you Brian? Are you Brian Wright?" And I look up, and it was a sous chef that was back there, and I said, "Yeah, hey, how you doing? Who are you?" I didn't know who this guy was. And he's like, "Man, we've been listening to your podcast for years, and we've implemented so many things into this restaurant." And I was thinking to myself at that time, I'm like, well, that's cool, right? I get to meet, our niche out there. I get to meet all of you all the time, see you all the time at events, but the following we have, unless they're customers, of course, but the following we have outside the niche, I don't really ever get to meet them at all. And I mean, what are the chances walking into a random restaurant in Charlotte where the people in the kitchen were going to know who I was in the podcast and all of that? And I'm thinking to myself, and this was 2 years ago, I'm thinking to myself, this is why we need to rebrand. This is why the message that we talk about on here needs to branch out further and further. And if you ever had the feeling where you're happy with what you do, you're ecstatic with what you do, and you help a lot of people, and you make an amazing living, and it's just an incredible job. But at the same time, there's a piece of you like, look, I want more. Like there's more to the message that I have. There's more to the talents that I have. And internally, I'm excited. And I've said this in some other podcasts leading up to today being obviously the first episode of the rebrand from the New Patient Group podcast into the Brian Wright Show, is that whether it be talking to somebody on an airplane, getting stopped walking, around downtown like I just described, walking through an airport after an event, whatever it may be, I love so much helping people. And we have helped so many in our niche for so many years. And now, not that, like I've said before, like we're not going outside the niche, but the messaging, just everybody needs to hear the messaging that we talk about on here from a transformation of life, career, business. If this is the first episode you've ever listened to, the imagination you need to use on some of these episodes is big, because let's say you're an entrepreneur and you own a web design firm, or you own a plumbing company, or an electrician, or a lawyer, or whatever it is. The principles when you're trying to grow a business apply to every business there is. Everybody has their product or service, but then everybody has the non-product or service things that will ultimately determine, can you ever sell your product? Can you create more value than the other places somebody could buy? Can you charge a higher price than everybody else that's in your space, if you will, and convert at a higher level? Can you show up to work happy every single day? Can you be a leader? Can you create the right culture that really allows all the things that have nothing to do with your product or service, but everything to do with whether or not you can sell it at a high price? Are they going to implement those skill sets when you're not looking? And a couple days ago, I was in one of my favorite places on the planet since we moved to Colorado Springs, is Shields. And when I walk in there, I always spend a lot of time just listening and paying attention. It's like walking into a place that implements everything that I teach all over the world. From, you can tell their culture's exceptional. Their people are happy. Their people are hardworking. They're knowledgeable. They know how to educate. They know how to speak. And they know how to make you feel great while spending a ton of money, which is really what a lot of this goes into, right? It's the waiter that can speak in a way that gets you to spend way more money because you bought the bottle of wine instead of the glass. You bought the specials for the evening. You bought the, set off menu items. You bought the desserts instead of not getting desserts. But you walked away feeling really special, really good. You're wanting to tell people about the experience and things like that. And there's an art to that. And that art, everybody, is not advertising. It's not outside your door and pay-per-click and all this crap that a lot of you have just been convinced over the years that you need. And I'm so excited to be back here as we, if you're somebody that's come across this podcast for the first time and you're not a business owner, we have tons of hourly employees inside the business owners that we do help. We have tons of people that, reps all over the country that work for more of a corporation that listen to this podcast to get more out of their life and more out of their career. And if you really pay attention to it and really look into the inner workings, you'll realize that life and career and business they're all interconnected. They don't operate separately. And for many of you out there that don't know that or don't pay attention to it, it'll make all three areas of your life, assuming you're a business owner. So that's where the business comes in. When I say life, career, and business, really what I'm talking about for employees out there, it's life and career. For business owners out there, it's really all three, because part of your job as a leader is to develop your employees in their life and in their career. That's just the reality of it. It's part of leadership today. You should want to develop your people. You should want to create and develop their skill sets in a way that's going to allow them to advance their career, get more out of their life, and maybe be promoted and eventually leave your business and take a job elsewhere and make money that they otherwise never would have been able to make inside your business. And there's just so much that goes into all that. And we're here, everybody, the first episode of the Brian Wright Show. And, this life, career, and business topic is very much related to really what we're going to be talking about today. And that's today's consumer, using the consumer data to dominate this new economy, to successfully navigate this new economy. And, our lives, our careers, and our businesses do not take a linear path. It would be so easy if we woke up every single day and everything was just a little better every single day. Can you imagine that? It's just, you could kind of sit back and just go, oh, we had, 3 sales today. And I know tomorrow when I wake up, there's going to be 4. And the following day, there's going to be 5 and at a higher price. Right? Obviously, it doesn't work that way. Life is an infinite marathon journey without a finish line. Our careers are like that. Our businesses are like that. But oftentimes, too many people take the finite sprint, if you will. They're thinking 3 months from now instead of a year from now. And that's where, if corporations and a lot of the reps listening, this is one of hundreds of differences between how you have to be successful running a small business versus a publicly traded company, as an example. Many of you already know this, but some of you may not. I'm a speaker and consultant for Align Technology, makers of Invisalign, $3 billion publicly traded company. And I certainly love speaking for them and consulting with them and bouncing ideas off each other and business ideas and things like that. It's an honor. I love doing it. I'm good at doing it. And I know I help them tremendously throughout our journey, just as they've helped me tremendously throughout our journey together. But the way they look at numbers is quarter by quarter, because they've got to show specific things to the shareholders, and short-term decisions are unfortunately the way they have to look at it. As an entrepreneur, short-term decisions will kill you. They will crush you. It's the vision that you have and the journey that you stick with on brand representation. And you may implement something new with the very much knowledge of knowing this could take 24 months to actually pan out. But we're going to do these things because every day it's going to enhance our brand. And look, not necessarily the podcast topic for today, but one of the most difficult things and why I think so many companies suck is that they're paying more attention to the numbers and the data and the analytics than they are the relationships that they're building with their customer. They're looking more at what does it cost me now versus if I do spend this money, how does it enhance my customer relationship? How does it enhance my customer experience? And when you think that way, it doesn't always produce a return right away. Right? You may lose money even in the short term, but you know that over the course of time, it's going to help keep your customers, right? Instead of the leaky hole of them leaving all the time. It's going to wow them. It's going to enhance them. It's going to enhance the chances that they want to refer to you. And like I said, stay with you as opposed to the other companies that may be hitting them up. And unfortunately, a lot of us not only run our businesses that way, employees listening, a lot of you run your careers that way. A lot of us run our lives this way as well, is not understanding that the decisions you make, if you're making them with tomorrow in mind, you're going to be sabotaging. It could be your relationship. It could be your promotion at work. It could be, hey, I see this, unfortunately, with hourly employees all the time, is they'll quit a job in order to go make $2 more an hour somewhere else, when they don't realize that the place that's going to pay them $2 more an hour, they have no chance for career advancement, no chance for promotion. Maybe that place isn't going to develop them like the place they just left. And they lose the fact that, yeah, I may make less today. I may even make less next year as well. But if I work hard, if I develop skill sets, if I offer value to the business, which is really a lost art. Many of you out there, you can't even comprehend, if you haven't owned a business or 22 of them like myself, you can't even comprehend what a nightmare HR can be. And what happens if somebody does leave, and the retraining process. I mean, small business owners lose millions upon millions of dollars because of employee turnover. And especially if it's good employees. And that's a topic for another time for sure. But through all of this, when you're making these short-term decisions, employees out there, what you fail to realize is, hey, the business I'm leaving, right? This is a business where I have opportunity for growth personally and professionally. This is a business that is committed to developing my skill sets. This is a business that's committed to developing my skill sets personally, meaning in my life as well as my career, which means that I'm going to have an opportunity to get promoted with this company, make way more money if I stick with it. But this short-term decision-making of, hey, I can make $2 more an hour and people quitting, I see it all the time. And this is how employees, you sabotage your career, which in turn sabotages your life. And there's 1,000 examples. We do it in our relationships. We do it in, whether that relationship be with a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend, a friend, whatever the heck it may be. We do this to ourselves all the time. And a lot of this that I'm diving into and talking about right now, this life, career, business parallel, which is what this podcast has always been about for 8 seasons, but it was really never defined. Right? I never sat back here and said, this is what this podcast is about. But this podcast is dedicated to entrepreneurs, their team members, and all of their family members, but for anybody that is wanting to transform life, career, and/or business. And the principles, like we're talking about right now, this life, career, business parallel, the principles all apply regardless of whether you own a business or not, what type of business you are, whether you're in our niche in orthodontics, dentistry, other healthcare spaces or not. It applies to everybody. And one of the reasons that I believe so many of you sabotage your success out there personally and professionally is what I call this new economy that we're going to be diving into today. I mean, this is real stuff. Like if all of you out there said, look, I'm going to remove my personal bias 100% from every decision I ever make again in my entire life, while extremely, extremely difficult, obviously, harder for others than it is others. But it's if you remove the personal bias and you use the consumer data that I'm going to be diving into today to make the decisions for you, or to at least teach you so you can understand, okay, this is why I'm having a problem losing weight. This is why I'm having a problem in my relationship. This is why I'm having a problem financially. This is why I'm having a problem getting a promotion at work, a pay increase at work. Or business owners out there, this is why I'm not converting the way I want. This is why sales are down. This is why revenue, production, collections, profit, efficiency are down. Whatever it may be, if you are not consistently achieving your goals, it's not because of a down economy or a slow metabolism or price shoppers, they're calling your business, wanting your price for cheap. It's not because of those things. It's because of the decisions that you are making. And a lot of times we make blind decisions off of personal feeling rather than data. Or we can't figure out why we're not succeeding personally or professionally. That goes career and business when I say professionally. But we fail to realize how the decisions we're making are impacting that. So therefore we need pay-per-click ads. We need more outdoor advertising. We need muffin drops, orthodontists out there to the dentist. Like, you constantly are thinking outside your doors when inside your business, there's millions upon millions of leaky holes. Now, this is the first podcast we've done since the beginning of April, and I wanted to finish the new patient group podcast before we officially rebranded this month in May. I wanted to finish on that blind spot podcast, and I wanted to because that's an exercise. With shout out to everybody that came to the mastermind event in Scottsdale. You want to talk about a good time? Holy cow! I talk to Chris and my wife about this every year when we have that mastermind, and the spouses are there, the customers are there, docs are there. I laugh harder every year on that getaway than I have the previous 364 days. I mean, that was our 4th one. The camaraderie, the life, the career, the business topics, the laughter, the food, the fun, is unmatched. I love all of you so much. And it's hard for me because I do consider so many of you my very, very close friends, and I have more fun with you than I really do with anybody else in my life. And we don't get to see each other that much, right? So it's like those 3 or 3.5 days, whatever it is, are so fun for me. But the topic on that Blind Spot podcast, that's what we roundtabled a lot at the event. It was a look in the mirror, look at yourself, and realize you're part of the problem, right? And there's so many uncontrollable conditions we all face out there, right? A down economy, that's something that's uncontrollable for us. The pathetic politicians are obviously a big part of that. You know, we print $1 trillion every 90 days. Inflation is insane because of that, and many other things. And we're kind of put in the middle of it with a bunch of people that are completely unqualified to do anything they do for the most part. And it affects our businesses, our careers, our lives, and things like that. And while we can't control that really, we can obviously vote for different people. But while we can't really control a down economy, just like you can't control a slow metabolism, there's very specific decisions that you can make to use those to your advantage or to overcome them. But when we sit and blame them as the reasons for our failures and we don't look in the mirror, what we end up doing is we end up using those uncontrollable conditions that change our state, change our mood. And not only can they get us down, it literally keeps us from being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel saying, look, I can make different decisions than I'm making today. And some of this is kind of a pickup off the blind spots. Like, I think the blind spots would be if you haven't listened to it yet, it would be a good podcast to go back and do that exercise that I talk about at the end, because they're real. You know, instead of saying our production and revenue and sales and new customers, new patients, and whatever are down because of down economy, competition, whatever it may be, the exercise entails, our sales are down. What am I doing to cause that? What decisions am I making to cause that? And that's really where this new economy comes in, because if all of you would just spend the time to self-educate. I've talked about this a million times on stage, on demand courses, to our customers a million times, that the smartest business people in the world are billionaires that dropped out. 75% of them dropped out of college or never went. These are the smartest business brains on the planet because of many things. But one of the reasons is they are obsessed with self-education. You are not going to learn true business in school, period. That is why very few billionaires, I'm talking, when I say multimillionaires, I'm not talking 5 million a year. I'm talking they're making 50, 100, 150 million a year. They are making decisions that many of us out here are not. They are using, an interesting stat that I use a lot is that, and I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure this is exact, that 68% of Fortune 1000 companies were created during a recession or a down economy. 68%, because these are people that look at a down economy, look at a bad economy, a recession, right, and say, how can we use that as an opportunity, as a unique advantage? They don't blame the condition. They say, let me use the condition to kick everyone else's ass, right? And that's what self-education does. School does not do that for anybody, right? And I've seen it so often where you could even, we'll start diving into the data right now. It's truly incredible when I talk about this data, but people still go back and do it the same way. And then want to blame the down economy, price shoppers, competition. I say air quotes when I say, or I'd use air quotes when I say competition, because another person selling a similar or the same product on the surface as you is not your competition. The fact you view it as the competition is part of your problem just to begin with. But your problem is lack of self-education, lack of change, lack of innovation, lack of doing things inside your doors A to Z differently than those people to separate yourself. That's your problem. Hard to hear, but it's the same thing if you want employees, if you want to improve your career and you're frustrated with how much money you're making, right? You've got to look in the mirror and say, okay, what is causing me to be in this position? And man, so few people can do that, which is why it gives the ones who can such a unique opportunity. Right now as it stands, and some of the stats I'm going to be reading here are ones that I've used for a while. Some of them are new. Couple that I've used now for a while is according to Forbes, we all see more than 10,000 marketing messages on any given day. I want you to think about that. Whatever it is that you're selling is an example. In our niche, it could be Invisalign. And, how do we get somebody to buy Invisalign over the other 5 practices they're calling and showing up to? Right? It could be you're a restaurant. You could be stuck in the commoditization of a hotel industry and you're trying to figure out how to build your base and increase sales. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Think about that stat and how hard it is to capture people's attention because of it. Now, I'm going to be talking about attention here in just a second, because getting their attention is one thing. Keeping it is an entirely different thing, which is it's even harder. And this is also why, from a personal standpoint, if you're trying to achieve a health goal, which I'm very big on, being a CEO of multiple multi-million-dollar companies, consultant and speaker for Align Technology, makers of Invisalign, speaker for OrthoFi, being invited as, just as I do this podcast, later on, I'm going to be putting the deck together on me. I'm the keynote at the Cleveland Orthodontic Society of Orthodontics in Cleveland here this month, a little bit later on. So I'm working on that deck currently, still building it out. That's like an all-day event. So, and I'm very, very, doing this podcast, coming up with new ideas and, being a father, being a husband, trying to give every customer we have the attention to make them feel like they're our only customer, the obsession over customer experience, training other people. And there's a lot more. You're not able to do all those at a high level without being health conscious and investing the money to have your body, your mind stay young, your looks stay young. Like those are things, all those things above are important to me, and more, and they're important to me because I want to look and feel good, but they're even more important to me because I know it's going to help me deliver a better experience for all of you. Through the process, though, it's extremely hard to stick with staying healthy, working out, eating the right things, because we're so bombarded. So whether it be personally, and like I said, like the more self-education, the more I take care of myself, the better I'm going to be professionally for all of you. The more customers we're going to get, the better retention we're going to have, the better relationships, friendships we're going to have with our customer base. And those things are extremely, extremely important to me. It's far more important to me to develop relationships and be close with you as a customer than it is getting a new one, period. And that is so hard because there's no data that ever as a business owner you're going to get that says, because of the relationships and the brand you've created, this is the return on your investment. Right? This is why it's so hard for people to understand it, to stick with it. I think on the surface, everybody agrees, but there's only a minute few that can stick with it. And it's even harder today because of this consumer data of sticking with things, sticking with your vision, sticking with your core values, sticking with your goals, doing the things that others won't in order to achieve those goals. And I see it more and more in today's society. I have a podcast in the future about the most ironic thing about your millennial and Gen Z complaints. I'm not going to dive heavily into this, but like, parents are setting their kids up for failure as well. I see it all the time. Like Kristen and I would go to dinner, and we're looking around at other tables, and this is just something, I guess I'm weird, but it's just something I pay attention to. I pay attention to how waiters interact with tables. I pay attention when I walk in a department store, how people interact with their customer or their want-to-be customer. I pay attention to this stuff, and I also pay attention to the 8 tables in the restaurant that have kids, and the kids are sitting there on electronics, frying their brain, and the parents, they're not having conversations at the table. The kid isn't ordering their own meal. The kid isn't interacting with the waiter. They're just stuck in electronics. Well, that's one of many things I'm going to be talking about on that podcast I just described that's screwing the kid in their future. And I see this a lot with all, it's all generations, but it's more the Gen Z is an example of, it's really, really hard for them to stick to things. It's really, really hard for them to reach, and employees is a great point for all of you. It's really, really hard for you to achieve a goal that's going to take 2 years, because like I said earlier, the moment a $2 a raise job comes up, you're out the door and you go over somewhere else. Like, that's not the way to grow your career. It's not the way to increase your value proposition to the business owner. It's not the way to end up years from now looking back and being really proud of the things you did in your career, how you helped the business, how you helped the customer. It's just not. And business owners that are in the Gen Z category too, it's hard for them to stick with. Like the second the month comes and money's down or whatever it is, like they crush their vision, they fire their outsourced companies, they can't stick. They justify it too. They find every reason to justify it. And they can't stick to what could have become in 2 years because of it. That stat too, the 10,000 marketing messages every day, it tells everybody out there that this is why, yeah, you've got to do your digital marketing differently. But you also have to lead differently to create a better culture. You've got to train your team uniquely on sales, hospitality, verbiage, presentation, psychology, which means knowing what to say, when to say, how to say, why to say, right? Using presentation skills, all of those things to create a framing effect that gets people to draw different conclusions about your business than other people that they perceive that could be the same, right? This could be like, why am I going to buy a Mercedes S-Class from this Mercedes dealership compared to the one down the street that has the same car? Right? This is how all of you need to be thinking all the time, right? Now, it's not to lower your price to get me to buy the S-Class from you. It's to actually be more expensive than the other place I could be the S-Class I could buy the S-Class down the street, but have all the non-car experiences so great that it builds the value in a way that somebody wants to spend more with you. And these are hard lessons, business owners out there, because so many of you have just been brain trained into thinking that you need advertising, you need pay-per-click, you need all this crap that you don't need. And if you are dumping money into that crap, the things I'm talking about and that you'll hear for years and 8 seasons on this podcast and you'll hear for years moving forward, all the skill sets that I've been talking about and referencing today, your employees need them even more in order to convert the marketing that you're doing. And that's, podcast for another time too, but Jesus, how could you ever spend money on advertising out your doors, but be naive enough to know that your team isn't trained to convert it? Like, why does anybody have to convince you that hourly employees need to be trained on sales, hospitality, all the things you're hearing me talk about today and for years? Right? And that's a blind spot going back to the previous episode. Well, because of all of these marketing messages and we're being bombarded, according to Microsoft, our attention span is now 1 second less than a goldfish. I want you to think about that for a second. It's almost It's almost embarrassing for me to say. Like, I've talked about these stats before in this episode. It's 1 second less than a goldfish. Yet orthos out there, you're trying to do a 1 hour long consultation, right? You're taking analog based photos, 2D x-rays. You're doing nothing unique to engage them. And I see it time and time again going into practices and watching is that 20 minutes in, the people are looking at their watch, they're already disengaged. Like, I look for those body signals and those clues that people are giving. The hour consult is over, everybody. It's over. And for those of you that have any chance of having success with it, you may be somebody go, we're having success. What does that even mean? Like, what does that even mean? Meaning that, does that mean that you're taking home what you want? And that your conversion you're happy with, right? If that's the case, it's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know, meaning that if you changed and did it differently, then maybe you're taking home twice as much and your conversion bumps 10%, right? But because you're happy, you're reactive and you wait until you're not happy to do anything. And part of this consumer data goes into, because our attention span absolutely sucks, it's very, very, very hard for us to focus on the controllables. I have a podcast coming. It's the 4 psychological stages of focus that really dives into that. And it's one of my favorite topics to coach, to talk about on stage, whatever it may be. It's one of my favorite topics because the businesses and the individuals, in life that can obsess over the controllables and make sure that those are constantly getting better. Those are the ones that are constantly overcoming the things that they can't control, the down economy, the slow metabolism, bad parental upbringing is an example. Earlier I was talking about these. Obviously, I can't give all the examples, right? You grew up in poverty. Your dad was a scumbag. You were molested, whatever the hell it is, right? Those are things that are completely uncontrollable. And if you use those reasons as the reasons you're failing, then it totally throws out all the other people that are stuck in those same conditions that are kicking ass. I've seen it for years. It's like the kid that grew up wealthy, then grows up and now he's in a rehab center. And meanwhile, the kid that grew up in poverty had nothing. Dad beat the crap out of him, right? Couldn't go to school, right? Is the multimillionaire that's one of the most influential people in the world. Like, these stories are all over the place. They're not And yeah, is it harder to overcome that stuff? Of course it is. But the reality is the decisions you are going to make, and those decisions very much, amongst other things, are very much centered around what you can control. Guys, a goldfish is smarter than us now, right? It's unbelievable, some of this data. According to many sources, eMarketer and others, Gen Z loses active attention span in just 1.3 seconds. I want you to think about that for a second, right? This is what I'm talking about, it's extremely hard to get anybody's attention. It's extremely hard to stand out. It's harder than ever before. But then once you do, and someone's like, hey, I'm going to click on that ad, right? Or I'm going to pick up the phone and call you, or I'm going to walk through your door, right? Maybe all the above, right? Maybe they clicked the ad, went to the website, got converted, called you, scheduled, came in, whatever it is. You have 1.3 seconds for them to decide, I'm going to continue with this process. This is why all of you out there, like, there are still companies teaching to be on the new patient phone call, as an example, for like 20 minutes. And there's still some of you out there that are paying for this advice. Like, I see company after company that hire, practice after practice, business after business, that hire a new patient group. We go in and, they've had one of these outdated consultants that teach it the same way today as they did 20 years ago. Meanwhile, we've changed our coaching every year for 13 years. Why? Because the consumer changes. Like, we don't put our bias into anything that we teach. We look at data. And if the data says Gen Z has an active attention span of 1.3 seconds, we know that your skill sets when you're on the phone, your skill sets when you produce content on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc., right? How you interact with people from a sales, hospitality, communication, all those things that we teach standpoint, all of those things have to be different, unique, better, etc., if you have any chance whatsoever. And you may say again, well, I'm happy with where I'm at. Again, I will say, what does that even mean? Right? Like waiting until you're not happy is not the way to do it. And that is so much what so many of you do. And you could go back to the previous episode. I would describe that as a blind spot. And that is a blind spot for most people because of how reactive we are. Our marriage goes to hell. We seek counseling. You guys have heard me talk about this a million times. We get fat. We go and try to lose weight. We lose money. We try to make money, right? Like we get fired. We try to go get a job instead of, gaining the skill sets and self-educating and training hard. And then you never would have been fired to begin with. Like the list goes on and on and on. But so many of you out there, you're still running your processes as if these stats didn't exist. It's mind-boggling also when you hear these stats that so many of you won't go back. Like over 90% of people surveyed said they would spend more with a business if they were convenient, right? I mean, we do this all the time, buying on Amazon or whatever it is. Why do we buy there? It's not because Amazon has products you can't find in other places. It's not because, their website's better. It's not because, whatever it is. It's not because of anything outside of its convenience. We spend more for products, and you should look at this. Oftentimes, products on Amazon are more expensive than if you bought them from, directly from the company or from another website. And why do we do it? Convenience. You buy, you add it to your cart, you buy it, it's at your doorstep the next day. If you want to return it because you don't like it, the return process is insanely simple. And so many of you out there make it an absolute nightmare for people to return stuff. And you're sitting there going, oh, on paper, if we make it harder, people won't return as much, so therefore we make money. Meanwhile, you destroy the relationship, destroy your brand, right? You destroy repeat buying, you destroy referrals, right? You destroy all the things you can't put your finger on. And it's just mind-boggling to me how people can't look at an Amazon and go, how can we mimic that? How can we provide the consumer easy information in a cool, fully digital way, and the convenient and have us give our product back, right? If they don't like it, or however it relates to your process, like the new patient virtual consult. It is insane, everybody. Listen to me. Virtual consults are not bad patients. It shouldn't be some redheaded stepchild that, oh, well, if they're this age, we'll move them into the virtual. Or if they're not serious, we'll move them into the virtual. Like, this is why the virtual doesn't work, because so many of you look at it as a lower level appointment, when if you run it right and you know the things that you absolutely have to do. Now, you may be somebody out there who says, the virtual doesn't work. We've tried it 1,000 times. It's because your processes don't work. It's you. It's not that the virtuals don't work. They do. Matter of fact, several of our practices right now are converting higher on the virtual than they are the in-person. Why? Because of all the data I just read you. The marketing messages, the attention span, etc. Look at the data and let the data drive the decisions for you. If you know that the data is saying that we're bombarded with information, have a shitty attention span, and you're somebody that's trying to lose weight, right? Going in, you have to do things differently, period. You've got to do it differently. You can't, whatever it be. A Garmin watch, which I just got one. I'm wearing. I'll show you, YouTube followers, how you doing, right? Like, I got this. It's the Phoenix 8, and it's expensive, right? I got it. Why? Well, I got it because of an investment in my health, but it also has accountability tools. And I love the accountability tools. Like, there's several things that it does that will report back, hey, you're slacking, dude. You suck, man. Like, get your you-know-what together, man. Like, it's on your wrist all the time. Like, I have the notifications turned off because I don't want to be I don't want my wrist to go off with a text all the time or be linked to my phone. I don't want anything to do with it. But what I do want is an accountability tool that follows me around all day, and that's why I got it. Because I know, just like all of you, this consumer data is real, and I'm one of them, right? My attention span. how much I'm bombarded with information, right? I fall into those. And don't kid yourself that you don't. Don't kid yourself that you don't. You know, if you want to grow your career, it's never been harder. Like I said, it's never been harder to go, you know what? My goal is in 12 months to gain 3 skill sets that I don't have today, right? I can be better at sales. I can be better in hospitality. I could understand consumer psychology better, so I know what to say, when to say, how to say, why to say, right? I can go the extra mile. I can show up early and stay late and ask nothing for it, right? I'm going to add so much value to this business that when I go and ask for a raise, right, I might be able to get $1 today, but in 12 months, I may get $5 more an hour today, right? Or in a year by doing those things. That mindset is so hard because of this consumer data. And obviously I'm not reading everything today. It's going to be a 3-day podcast. But this stuff, guys, is real. And it's why we're here. It's why we are the trusted voice in the new economy, right? The content we produce in our niche outside of it is unmatched. Everything you learn is statistical fact and how to make decisions around it. Right? Videos. I mean, think of the video world that we live in. It's insane. I mean, the stats, 51% of Gen Z women find information via video search on TikTok, right? Okay, you take that data, go look at your business, and what organic content are you producing that goes out regularly on TikTok? Who are you using that has expertise to teach you what content to shoot, to put on TikTok? How do you know when to do it, right? How do you build the following? How do you create content that just doesn't make somebody smile, but also converts them closer to your brand, to purchasing part of your brand, your product, service? Right? Now, these are things that our digital marketing team with New Patient Group, they're experts in. This is why, and it cracks me up. This is, like with Smile Direct Club, talking to our niche right now, with Smile Direct Club, so many of you would complain about them. And I would kind of chuckle because I'd be like, I think they're a good thing for all of you. Why? Well, they're going to dump millions into advertising to bring awareness to people, right? Yeah, people may go and get their teeth jacked up, but guess what's happening? They're coming to your office after to get them fixed. And they never would have come to your office, period, if it wasn't for Smile Direct Club. Like I look at, it's a perfect example. So many of you would look at Smile Direct Club as a competitor, as somebody that's ruining the industry, as the list goes on and on and on. And you would spend so much of your time focused on that. It would change your state, change your mood. It would suck your energy dry. When I looked at it and I said, this is great. Just let it play out. They're never going to last. Just let it play out. Let them do the advertising for you. And those people are going to be turned into your customers. And they never probably would have been without SDC, right? You see how, and we taught our customers, let's put out content around this, right? We're not going to call out people, but we're going to talk about, hey, look, if your teeth have been ruined, right? The importance of choosing an orthodontist, right? A specialist to move your teeth, right? All these things. Let's get it out there, get awareness out there. Let's code it around the Smile Direct Club search terms, right? And let's use the content to open up people's mind and use it to kick everyone's butt. And this is the same type thing that's happening to us on the digital marketing side of our business with New Patient Group, is people are using all these big names that spend all this money at AAO. And as I do this podcast, AAO is right around the corner, and you'll spend all this money advertising, all this stuff, and people go and use them. And guess what they do? They leave them and come to us, the company that's not advertising, the company that spends its money on its customers, the company that spends its money on self-education, the company that spends its money on self-improvement, a constant focus on getting better, revamping the program. The list goes on and on and on and on. And it's a perfect example, right? I look at all of them. None of them are our competition, period. They're all people that are getting the word out for us without even knowing they're doing it. And I love it. And then people leave, they come to us, we rarely ever lose them, right? And this is how so many of you need to look at this stuff. Like, use things as opportunities to advance your career, get promoted, make more money, right? Get more out of your relationship with your spouse, grow your business. There's so many things that people complain about when if you don't and you use those same things to your advantage by making different decisions, having a different mindset around it, you will be blown away at the transformation you have in your life, career, and business. TikTok's the same way, right? You get somebody, oh, social media is stupid, right? Well, you know what? A lot of it is stupid. But guess what? You can still use it to your advantage, right? Like, we're all over it. Do I think it's stupid? I mean, I don't think a lot of, we don't do a lot of content that, it's more content that is going to help you, right? It's not goofy, that type of content. Is it stupid? I don't know. But I just know what the stats are saying. So it doesn't matter. Like if you're somebody out there, you're like, it's stupid. Who cares? Like who gives a damn what you think? Like, sorry, that's probably pretty straightforward, but it's true. Like it doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter what you want. It matters what the data says. It matters what the consumer data is. It's your job as a visionary to then use that data to your advantage or go around with your groups of people complaining about it and using it as a reason that you're not kicking everyone's ass. It really is that simple. Well, according to multiple sources, 1 minute of video is now worth 1.8 million words. I want you to think about that. 1 minute of video is worth more than 1.8 million words. One of many reasons, one of the reasons that's the case is that viewers will retain 95% of a video's information as opposed to only 10% via text when you're talking to them in person, etc. And you look at that and you say to yourself, or at least I do, like, okay, how many things can we turn into video that we otherwise would have to tell somebody, right? It's like the airplanes where the flight attendants still have to do all their hand signals about putting on the seatbelt and the exits and everything, repeating themselves. Nobody's listening, as opposed to the airplanes that have a video, right? The screen that folds down from the ceiling or in the back of your seat that explains the whole thing, right? It makes you more efficient. And this is where, our existing customer experience, existing patient experience for our niche, like after they've signed the contract, is more impactful than our program to try to get them to sign the contract and to begin with. The difference is that you can't necessarily see the data improvement on paper, right? It's easy. If you're converting at 60%, we come in and we get you to 75% as an example, right? That's an easy, it's working, right? Enhancing your brand and how your people communicate with your customer, with your patient, around compliance. And that's a hard return on investment to put your finger on. But every single minute of every single day, your team members are communicating with your patients, your customers, and they don't get trained on the skill sets on how to do it, like your clinical assistants. That is not a clinical job description, right? Every time they open their mouth, how they discuss the ClinChecks chair side, use the iTero to build value chair side, right? Have conversations with parents, right? I've told you guys this story before. I was in a practice a long time ago. Girl was uncomfortable. She was crying. And what did the practice do? She's just a wimp. That's what they're talking about back there. Rather than going to their parents and saying, thank you for being a patient, right? She's a little uncomfortable. We're so sorry. Can we do something for you, right? Even if it's true and the patient's a pain in the ass or the customer is. We all have pain in the asses as customers, right? We can either choose internally to call them a pain in the ass or go, guess what, right? Maybe they're a pain in the butt, but it's our job to exceed expectations and make them happy. And you're not going to do that if you're blaming them, just like you're not going to do that and grow your business if you're blaming the economy. Just like you're not going to grow your business when you're blaming competition. The list goes on and on and on how all of this relates personally, professionally, career, life, business, whatever. All of you should be turning your delivery appointments, whether you're delivering Invisalign, something else, but whatever it is, you should turn that into a video. Your assistants when they're talking about taking in and out of clean, and all of our people listening to this podcast that aren't in our niche, think about this. Like, one of the cool things about this podcast that you will learn is how we teach orthodontic practices, dental practices, plastic surgery. Like, our true niche is in orthodontics. And then we have also dentists, plastic surgeons, pedo, perio, optometry, right? Because they're all a commodity. You can buy from, you Google them, and whatever you put in, dentist, you put in orthodontist, you put in Invisalign, whatever it is, there's going to be 20 options within 20 minutes of your house or where you work. So they're a commodity. So therefore, the things that are going to make them successful are no different than what's going to make a hotel successful, a restaurant that's commoditized successful, etc. It's going to be cool for all of you to realize, how do we get practices to get you to buy from them at a higher dollar than you going somewhere else? And you'll understand, if you're a business owner, as I talk about these principles to our niche, you will understand, if you have any imagination whatsoever, how you need to do it in your business to get people to buy from you at a higher dollar, right? It's the same way in a restaurant. Great food will not justify a higher price on your menu. Being a great orthodontist will not justify having a higher price on your menu compared to the other restaurants, compared to the other orthos, right? That is one part of it, a very important part, right? You can't have McDonald's food and charge, $100 for a steak, right? Not gonna work. Same way, you can't be the worst orthodontist in the country and charge $10,000 for Invisalign. You get the point. So it's an important part of it, but it is not the biggest part of it. The biggest part is the other intangibles, as proven by 91% of people surveyed by Harris Interactive in their most recent study, shows that people will choose and or remain with a business because of the experience over whether or not the company is any good at what they do. Right? I talk about this stat a lot. It used to be 88%. It's actually gone up 3%. I talk about this stat a lot because what we teach for a living is experience. That's not you being nice, by the way. It drives me nuts. Well, we don't need it. Janice is nice. No, it's not what it is. That's not what experience is. That's not what hospitality is. It's not what customer service is. All three of those are something different, by the way. Don't lump them into the same category. It goes so far beyond that. There's thousands of ingredients, but you look at that stat, and what do most of you obsess over? You obsess over CE to be a better clinician, right? You obsess over CE to be a better chef. You obsess over your product or your service, but you don't obsess the same or more over all the things that will determine how much of it you sell and how high of a dollar you sell it for. You don't obsess over those things. If you did, as well as the CE of being the best chef in town, etc., that's how you charge more. Because the experience, the things people can relate to, right? They don't know a good dentist from a bad. They do know if you hurt them, right? But if you didn't hurt them, right, you could have put a crappy crown in their mouth and they're not going to know. This is why the better business will defeat the better clinician, right? They can't tell an average orthodontist from a subpar orthodontist from a great one. They can't tell. You can in the industry, right? And you get confused thinking that the consumer sees value in it, when if your team doesn't know how to sell it, they won't. This is why, and this is true for any business, how your menu looks at your restaurant, how your waiters speak, how they're greeted, how the phone call went, the ease of reservations, what happens between reservation and when they show up, right? All of these intangibles, as the manager, come to the table, shake the hand. Is there a virtual tour through the kitchen? Like, how's your wine cellar look? Like, there's so many things that go into, okay, now we're the most expensive in town. And those are the same intangibles that will determine whether or not you ever get a Michelin star rating, right? That's the other mistake as well. Why do they have a Michelin star? Well, they're the best they have the best food in town, right? No, that's not why they have the Michelin star. Right? They have the Michelin star because they're the best food in town, but they also, all the other intangibles that I'm talking about are also better than any other people business you could walk into, whether it's a restaurant, hotel, your practice, whatever it may be. I mean, these lessons, guys, are so invaluable and this is of many reasons, like I was saying in the beginning, there's been so many conversations that I've had with people outside our niche over the years that have helped them tremendously. And it's why we've had, the restaurant example, like the one in Charlotte that I talked about, is listen to the New Patient Group podcast. But man, you have to be forward thinking to see a podcast named New Patient Group to go, okay, that can help me as an entrepreneur, right? Even though all this stuff does, just like I'm talking about today, kicking off the Brian Wright Show, first episode. I mean, it's so true, everybody, and you know it, right? But because of the consumer data, will you execute it? Do you have the attention span, the discipline, right? Which is why a lot of people hire us to hold them accountable, teach them the discipline, be repetitive with them in their practice, their business. It's hard. And it's harder than it ever has been before. I mean, YouTube is the second largest search engine to Google. If you go next time you're going to a restaurant and you look online, go to their YouTube station. It's not going to have anything on it. This stuff drives me nuts. This is the same way with most of your practices out there. I just did a national webinar about this yesterday. Like most of your practices out there, somebody makes an appointment. What happens between the time they schedule with your receptionist and the time they show up to their reservation, their appointment? Same thing for restaurants out there. Same thing for all of you. Like from appointment time to when they're supposed to show up, that pre-arrival, right? It sucks. It's the same thing as everybody else. And then you wonder why they no-show you or they cancel, right? Like automated text reminders. Like who does that? Raise your hand out there, right? Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with it. But the problem is the data shows in our niche that people are calling 5 or more practices before deciding which to schedule with, going in 3 or more practices before deciding which to buy with. And yet you're doing automated text reminders just like the other practices. It doesn't help. They tune it out. They don't even know who the hell the automated text reminder's coming from, right? But if you go back to the video data, right? So how do we create a beautiful welcome video of the chef and, introducing himself or herself and taking you through a virtual tour of the kitchen, discussing where you source the food and the culinary skills and what makes the restaurant unique, right? And the culture of the restaurant. Maybe the owner of the restaurant's not the chef. Maybe he or she's on there too, right? And maybe that's sent out right after you make your reservation online or by calling. And every time you click on it, you're driven back to their digital presence where you can see other videos, which in turn builds up your Google search rankings because the two are very intertwined, right? These are the things that if you use the consumer data, the video is how you engage them. It's how you stand out. It's how to capture their attention. It's how to keep their attention. Right? This is how you can reduce, and so many businesses out, this is especially true in our niche, but many of you out there can relate to this too. If you would just focus on, but again, the reason why you don't focus on what I'm about to say is you blame the consumer, the patient, the customer, the whatever for no showing you. Right? And you go talk to your buddies about, they're just price shoppers. They're not serious. Meanwhile, they're price shoppers because you don't have the ability to sell them on your value proposition because you're not seeking the training from experts on how to do it. You're doing the same things as the other 3. You are causing the no-show. And if you would just look at the consumer data and go, okay, how can we be innovative and think in terms of experience? How can we deliver that to get people to show up at a higher level? For many of you out there, like I said, especially in our niche, in ortho dentistry, et cetera, your ticket items are so high that if you can reduce your new patient, a lot of you should do this right now. Go find out how many new patients you had in 2024 and say, okay, if 30% of those showed up and we're converting at 70% at an average case fee of $6,000, boom, that's how much money we would have made extra in 2024. These are exercises you should be doing with yourself. That's one example of many all the time. All the time. And infinite-minded teaching here, right? And I love the infinite versus finite mindset. Been teaching it around the world for many, many years. And I haven't done a podcast specifically about it. It's coming. The infinite-minded person, so the finite-minded person would stop right where I just said. Okay, let's say you did that exercise and let's say you lost $250,000, right? That's where they would stop. Okay, the infinite-minded person would realize the true loss wasn't the $250,000. It was the brothers, the sisters, the friends, and all the other referral stream that would have come from starting those patients. It's those ones you lost that add up to millions. Right? Those are the infinite-minded thinkers, the ones that understand you have to think beyond paper. You've got to understand that most data on paper is a liar. Right? If you see the referrals that you got from your customers last year as an example, That teaches you something. But what it doesn't teach you is the true loss. The true loss is how many people weren't asked for referrals properly by your team because they're not trained on sales, hospitality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, down the line. Same with your Google reviews, right? Let's say you got 50 last year and you're happy with that. I would say, how many would you have got if you trained your freaking waiters how to ask every table? When's the last time you went to a restaurant and that happened? It never happens, right? Why? Well, they don't think in terms of experience. They don't think in terms of this. They're so worried about advertising that if they would have just reinvested the money to the waiters, they wouldn't have to advertise. Same with so many of you in our niche and your practices out there, right? If you would just get your team trained consistently and repetitively on sales and all these skill sets that I talk about, you're going to be getting so many more 5-star reviews without worrying about automations and tech that you got to pay companies for. You got to train people, and you got to train people in a specific way because of the attention span. Like, what are the chances of somebody that loses active attention span in 1.3 seconds? What are the chances of you asking them in a way that engages them, but then in turn gets them to go do it when they leave, right? Because life gets in the way. Like, there's specific ways to do it. There's specific ways not to do it. Just like the virtual consult, all the other things. 96% of business owners say that it's never been harder to keep great people, right? It's hard to find anybody anymore, but keep great people. And it's one of the reasons it's hard to find is that we live in socialism and don't even know it, right? The tax rate in California is the same as it is in Germany. I know this because we have a babysitter who is from Germany, and they're about to leave Colorado Springs and move to California. Her husband is on a professional soccer team in Denver, and he got traded or whatever it is, and they've got to move to California. So when you add up all the taxes, sales tax, food tax, gas tax, which is the only taxes the government should get. If they managed it right, they wouldn't need anything else. But they piss it down the toilet. So then you've got state tax, income tax. I mean, there's taxes for everything, right? I mean, there's even cow fart tax, and that's not a joke. That's another crazy tax that has been put on farmers. Like, we live in socialism and don't even know it. And part of the socialism, you'll see it in any socialistic countries, the work ethic sucks, right? It sucks the greatness out of people because you have the rich and you have the poor. There is no middle class. There can't be because of the tax rates. And because we live in socialism, this is why it's so hard to teach somebody you've got to earn it. If you want to get a promotion at work, just being there for a year is not going to get you a promotion or a pay raise, right? You've actually got to put effort into it, sacrifice. You've got to hold yourself accountable, be dedicated, do the things others won't do, right? These are the things that create greatness. These are the things that find your given talents, right? And make you somebody that is special out in society and produces a wonderful return for society and helps other people. Right? Like in my world, the more people I help, the more I make, the more money I make, right? It's a great trade because I love to help people, right? But so many of you out there have the pathetic mindset of, well, if you make this, you've got to be penalized for it, as if it's helping anybody. It doesn't help anybody. Like, if my tax rate goes up, it's not going to help you. It's not going to help your kids. It's not going to help anybody, but has been proven it's just going to make the politicians richer. It is what it is. That's the world we live in. So that's why it's so damn hard to find people and keep people, especially the good ones. And I have the 4 parenting types of business coming up at some time and how it affects your employee and customer patient compliance. And that's a great one. It's very dear to my heart because there's so many things going on in society and business that I'm going to bring home into that podcast. I can't wait to do it. That's a podcast that maybe I could go on for 3 hours. Something interesting, Boyd Whitlock, you'll appreciate this because we talked about it, where, the length of our podcast. So if you look at the data, the ones that have the highest download rate and are listened to the longest are the longest podcasts. The ones that are shorter, not as long. And I've talked to everybody about this all the time. Same way with your YouTube videos, your online content. The misconception is they've got to be short, quick, and fast. It's not true, right? They've got to engage, right? You could, the Huberman podcast, if you haven't listened to it, check it out. It's a great self-learning podcast. He has thousands upon thousands of followers, big name. His podcasts take forever. And to be honest with you, the information's great, but he's not the most engaging, show host there is out there. But the content is engaging. You could see so many podcasts out there that have insane followings that are very, very long. And I've noticed on our podcast, the shorter and shorter I go, the downloads, there's not as many downloads. And Boyd, you and I, so Dr. Whitlock, for those who don't know, he's orthodontist and longtime customer with us. We had this conversation, one day about, hey, can you make the podcast shorter? And, we think that there's some people that I've referred to that they said the podcasts are too long. I said, absolutely. And we started doing it. And I actually noticed for a while that we had some of our listeners leave. Like, they like the storytelling. They like the longer, it keeps them working out. They're listening on the treadmill. They're driving long journeys back and forth to work, whatever it may be. And kind of what I said to myself is look, and this is for any of you out there wanting to start a podcast or a YouTube station and you're scared to do it. The reality is if you suck, you suck. And the sooner you find out you suck, the better, right? If you're great, you're great. And the sooner you find out that, the better, or somewhere in between. And I have found that if I just do it the way I am, talking about the why and the storytelling, and I bring it home to a point all the time and several points on many podcasts, is that the vast majority of people that are attracted to this podcast, that's what they want. And the format moving forward, though, is going to be a combination of long ones, is going to be a combination of shorter ones, and try to blend them both in. But in the end, you can't make everybody happy, but you certainly try. It's not the easiest of job keeping people engaged for the same reasons I'm talking about, right? All the consumer data, you could look at that and go, well, I got to be quick. Or you can look at that and you go, I've got to be engaging. And that's it. You can be engaging and quick, right? There is a such thing, right? But this is like for all of you in your exam room. Like if you're using analog-based photos with a camera that looks like it came out of the 80s and you're not succeeding the way you want, it's because of you. Use the freaking iTero machine. It's the greatest sales tool through experience on the planet. If you understand all the fundamentals and the tools and how to use it, you should be having it on your digital marketing. You should be having your receptionist edify it. You should use it as a reason people show up. You should use it as a reason people buy, right? But we're still so stuck in our ways, and it just is. It's crazy, everybody. It's crazy. But anyway, that was a little rant on the 4 parenting types of business that's coming up, guys. The consumer data is real. If you would just look at it and use it to dictate your decision making. Remove the personal bias. How you feel about something, no matter how hard it is. I tell myself this all the time to remember what I coach all of you on. Like and I've used this as an example. Like I'm not a person that would choose the virtual consult in your practice. I would want to come in. Right? This is why it's important to have 2 different experiences like we teach. You can't have one. You've got to refine 2 different experiences, dual close it, edify both, dual close it, and let the consumer tell you what experience they want. But I don't have bias against the virtual, and it's something we teach. We teach it in an amazing, amazing way because we don't let something how I feel get in the way of the innovation. So many of you out there hire people that are teaching it how they feel. It's why there's still consultants that teach you to stay on the new patient call for 20 minutes and ask 1,000 questions. Then you send them a bunch of paperwork that asks the same damn questions, and you wonder why they don't want to fill it out. That's not hospitality. That's not being a people-first business. It's just ridiculous. Like you're making your front desk make confirmation calls to new patients when your TC could just send out a personal welcome video 48 hours before and wow them. Because guess what? My other 3 opinions are making confirmation calls, and guess what? While you're making those confirmation calls, you're missing new patient calls, and it's another leaky hole that you don't know about. That's certainly a podcast for another time because every business out there, it's the biggest leaky hole in the planet for small businesses is the phones, period, end of story. The problem is, and the reason why when you call plumbers, accountants, lawyers, dermatologists, dentists, orthodontists, list goes on, the reason why they all suck from an edification and hospitality and sales and all standpoint is because they don't train them on it. And the other way, we've all called all of those places, and nobody and people don't answer the phones. Like I can't tell you how many times I've called a place wanting to buy something and they didn't answer, and I called and bought for somewhere else. All of you have been in that shoes, and it's happened in your small business every single day. But again, going back to, it's the data you can't put your finger on, so you're just not worried about it, right? You're spending $5,000 a month on pay-per-click. Meanwhile, you're missing 3 to 5 new patient calls a month. Like, we've got the data with my other company, Right Chat. If you're a 30 a month new patient a month practice, 30 new patients a month, you're missing 3 to 5 calls on average, right? That means if you used Right Chat, we could answer, speak as your employee, remote into your software, and schedule an additional 3 to 5 new patients starting right away for you immediately, right? That's going to produce a better return than any advertising you're going to do, and at a cheaper rate. And it just drives me nuts. But again, the consumer data, like if you miss a call, they're not calling you back, right? You may be lucky, they may leave a voicemail, but that's a horrible representation. Just again, off data stuff is that it's just bad brand representation. You don't want to be represented that way. You want to be represented in a unique way when somebody calls you. And missing a call, even if you get lucky and they end up starting with you, it's still a crappy experience. And I'm telling you right now, we've got the data. Like 99% of customers, this goes for any business, are not going to call you back. You've got to answer your phones. And if you do, you'll add customers to your business right away without advertising. And it's the consumer data, everybody. It's what this episode obviously was about. It's what we're about. And using it to make decisions, using it to guide your decision making, right? Help you navigate through this new economy. And I don't want to say win it, because again, there's no finish line. Like, what the hell does that even mean? It's like, well, I'm the number one sales guy in my company. So what? Like, is that for the quarter? Right? That doesn't mean anything. It means that you're ahead right now. And I can tell you that a lot of people that jump out early fall behind late, right? It's like baseball, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. Like, you go 1 month and your team's not doing well and the fans are like, oh my God, the season's over. Meanwhile, anybody that's been in professional baseball, and many of you know I was an umpire for 3 years in professional baseball, anybody at any level or any job description in the game knows that standings and stats don't matter until after the All-Star break, right? And in life, it's kind of the same thing. It's like you're ahead now, but guess what? This crazy maze of a journey we're all in, you may be getting your butt handed to you in 2 years, right? And you have to remember that. That's why you've always got to be making the moves today, whether you're in trouble, whether you're doing great, whether you're in between. You've constantly got to be making the moves to make sure you stay there. And damn, that is so hard. That proactive mindset is so difficult. It's so difficult. But everybody, if you simply remove the bias and make decision-making around customer experiences rather than data, and you make your decisions around how to use that customer experience in a way that the data around the consumer is telling you, you're going to crush everybody, all right? I hope you enjoyed the very first episode of the Brian Wright Show. I think this is I think I said it in the beginning, this is episode about 124 overall. So as always, everybody, please subscribe. We have a brand new Brian Wright YouTube station. Please subscribe to that. I'll put the link if you're watching this on the new patient group station or somewhere else. I'll link up all the YouTube stations. Please go there and subscribe. We're trying to build up this organic following on a brand new YouTube station of the Brian Wright Show. We've got a brand new Brian Wright Show Instagram, all right? So I'll put that link in the podcast description below as well. We also have a brand new website, and it's the brianwrightshow.com. I actually think it's bwshow.com. I'll link that up so you can check that out as well. But we'll put, as always, all the goods, all the links down in the description below, as well as how to get a free consultation with myself to talk about your business, your practice, just the struggles you have, whether it be on the digital marketing side or inside your doors on the coaching side, around all the great things we teach on here. We look forward to helping you. All those links will be in the description below. Please thumb this video up on YouTube, share it with your friends, colleagues, anybody, family members. Same way if you're listening on the audio experience channels, give us a nice 5-star review on Apple or iTunes, wherever it may be that you're listening. And please share this, everybody, with anybody that wants to get more out of their life, career, and or business. And until next time, we'll see everybody soon. Bye-bye.